So I'm gonna go ahead. Thank you so much. I've been asked to speak to you about the neuroscience of performance and looking specifically at the entity of mental agility. So when you think of the word mental agility, some of the first words that come to mind are, when you hear the word mental agility, any ideas? Hands up. Yes. Okay. Flexibility, another synonym there. Very good, very good. So when we think about agility, I work in the world of sports performance, looking after high performance teams, World Cups, Springboks, Sevens, you name it. And when it comes to agility in that sense of the physical peak and the meat box, agility means the ability to change direction, move your center of gravity, to change this big meat box and change it into a direction that is beneficial to both the person and the team at the same time. So in your workplace and in your corporate life, you're also going to be faced with many opportunities to do that. So take a look at this. Another issue when it comes to the ROI index. Heavy investment in the markets, but how will we see it? How will we see it? How we see the ROI? So the question then should be how many of you saw that coming? Who saw that coming? Hands up. I mean, you were expecting some really negative experience, but his perspective and the agility in his cognitive brain in terms of the Special Olympics took us down a different path. So too, I'll ask you to refer back and remember that imagery as we move through my talk and get there a little bit later. All right, so we all know that as a species, we are all designed to survive. We do better in herds, don't we? In terms of, if you think back to generations and generations, we survive, and our chances of survival are better if we do it in groups. If you have to find food alone, it's harder, it's more difficult. Protection, security, you name it. When it comes to survival, you have innate abilities that help you survive without you thinking about them, that are reflex things. If a lion walked in here right now, your pupils would dilate. Why? Because you want to see the thing that's threatening you. Look for weaknesses or look for the exit sign for you to run away, obviously, as well. Your heart starts beating faster because you need oxygen and nutrients to the brain to think of a plan to rescue you in the situation. All right, what else happens? Well, you might start sweating or perspiring to cool you down for when you do start running, that you don't overheat like a car's radiator, for example. Along with that, obviously, whether you're black, white or blue, you always hear the saying, the Afrikaners say, "Ek het my wit geskrik." I was as white as a sheet. Why does everyone turn white when they have a fright? Well, the blood vessels to the skin constrict in order to direct the blood to the essential organs. And no, that is not an essential organ. The essential organs are your brain, your heart, your kidneys. But when you run, obviously, the blood is shunted away from the stomach to the large muscle groups. And that's why the marathon runners, when they cross the finish line, what happens? They collapse. They suddenly stop. Then the blood supply and the pressure needs to adapt to them now standing still. All right, so we all know that we have to survive and how geared we are to survive. So let's carry on. So if you look at the 3 F's, I'm going to go back one. Sorry, just missed that one. There we go. High pressure stress states. Our previous speaker spoke about cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that gets released from the adrenal glands that sit just above your kidney. And they also in a beautiful circadian rhythm to when you sleep and when you're active in the day. Cortisol also helps you keep your muscle mass when you're over 40. Gents and ladies, because ladies also have testosterone, for example, and they also have cortisone as the secondary hormone when it comes to stress. The 3 F's in our lives when it comes to living stressful lives, what are they? Fight, flight, and freeze. Fight, flight, and freeze, your response in an emergency situation. So what happens is, I'm here today to speak to you about the brain on a brain-specific science and medical level. How do we get to a place where we stop worrying about just surviving and move to thriving, when we're in a constant state of high stress, high performance, pressure cooker, at work every single day. Then we go home and at home it's exactly the same. Your children come home and then you start unpacking those problems to solve. It feels like all you ever do is just listen to problems to solve. And people are specialists at problem finding. But very few people are actually interested in problem solving. That's what this is about, and that's why I want to talk to you about the neuroscience today, specifically about developing a mental agility that helps you become a better problem solver, innovative thinker, and a creative leader. So it's not just about survival, it's about taking the brain to another level, obviously. So when you look at that picture, would you say there's some successful people on that? You recognize a few, I'm sure? Excuse me, I'm going to walk down here. Would you recognize there? Anyone? Nelson Mandela. Anyone else?
Einstein.
Brian Havana, Steve Jobs. Oh, Messi. Some soccer fans in the house, of course.
Einstein.
Albert Einstein. So I'll ask you if they're successful. Sorry for that. Just a little ad break. But understanding that those people are obviously mostly successful, are they not? I changed the question. I asked you, look at that picture and tell me, are any of them significant? Are you reframing your approach and your filter to high performers and successful people? Is someone that's successful necessarily significant? And the key word here to take away is that significance, when compared to success, success is often about you achieving heights in your ability and your skill set that take you to a new level. But when it comes to significance, it's how you use those skills to impact and influence positively the lives of others. It's a living outwardly approach for significance that changes the course of history, the course of operations, the course of family life and security and love in someone's life, taking them over a journey. The difference between success and significance. Why that's important is because when we assess health and wellness and things like happiness, for example, people's definition of how they define success and what they ascribe to is not all the same. For some people, success is separate from significance, and for some of us, there's overlap, and they're not necessarily the same thing. That's the bottom line. All right. So this is a business definition of thriving. It says we use our skills and knowledge to allocate resources together and to distribute these resources fairly in order to stay alive, survive, and thrive. That's a business definition of looking at thriving. When we look at the other definition, it says of well-being is essential for all forms of performance, even for finding meaning and purpose in life, where thriving is another human capacity that might be best described as well-being in action or motion. So the word being itself, everyone says just be. Here's be in the moment, be, C-K-B. Well-being can be perceived as a passive state. I urge you to challenge yourself and realize that thriving is in fact an active state where the performing subject can reach its highest potential. All right, so that's just a quick model referring to thriving at the top, brain performance position in the middle in the green triangle over there, and then of course resilience, leadership, learning and innovation at the top. But in order to get the roof on the house, the foundation needs to be intact, friends. What are the things that their foundation? On the left there in blue, you've got the personality style. You've got preference styles of leadership that are individual in the room. You've got problem-solving brains in some of us that comes naturally, and logical thinkers, and other people are emotional thinkers that struggle to get down to the nitty-gritty problem solving because we feel so upset that we've been wrong in the meeting, and the tone that the colleague spoke to us in is just absolutely unacceptable at the boardroom table. And that cripples our performance because we are emotionally driven. You can't move into gear to take pictures. Problem solving, innovation, creativity. PIC. We can't move there because we're stuck and paralyzed. All right, so the third block at the bottom, talent, skills, and knowledge, obviously, understanding that everyone is geared with different talents, different skills, and different knowledge sets in terms of you executing when it comes to performance. So the brain, what does the human brain love in order to achieve and to perform? It loves new things, novel things. So if you're doing the same routine every day, and you're not introducing new, exciting, intellectually stimulating things, intellectually stimulating people, if you're not into even activities in your life that are not new, learning a new skill set, your brain kind of gets used to it and knows, oh, I'm gonna give out so much energy the next day, and it understands the routine. The human brain loves routine to a large degree. It loves knowing when you're going to sleep at night. It doesn't like sleeping at 10 o'clock one night, 12 o'clock one night, and 1 o'clock another night. Because it actually likes planning for the next day. It conserves the energy according to the tasks that are coming. And a lot of us don't know the impact of reading, for example, a simple agenda for a meeting the day before activates your brain. And did you know that your brain is more active when you sleep than when you are awake? It actually, if you do prime it, it takes the information required for the next day out of the long-term memory. It puts it on the workbench so you can access the file that you utilized for that specific topic on a previous occasion. And there might be an emotional attachment to it, there might be a factual attachment to it, or a memory that gets jogged. And then it brings it forward and puts it on the table for you to use in the meeting, so you don't have to scratch your head and really struggle to get to it. That's what priming the brain does when you give it a chance, by reading your agenda beforehand. Anyway, so the brain also is tasked with fear and survival, which I've already addressed with you. And then benefit versus effort. It's always looking for a shortcut to achieve what it can achieve with doing the least amount of work. And the last thing, obviously, that you all know in this day and age when it comes to AI, tech, social media, is reward versus punishment. We become so used to immediate gratification, knowledge at our fingertips, information that's just freely available right there. And we're not used to taking the time of reading a book, for example, and finishing a book. You've even got apps now that summarize the books for you and give you just the key matter, so that you don't experience the full joy of the texture, smell, and calming down. But the rush is about the information, it's about the overload, not so? Reward versus punishment. So that you'll think of the dopamine hits that lead to gambling. And that's why in our society today we're struggling with immediate dopamine addiction in our children and in our own homes, when it comes to scrolling on the cell phones, when it comes to things like impatient communication strategies with our children, when they don't get what they want from you immediately, it affects their mood, it affects their tone, the communication starts changing. But anyway, I hope that gives you some context to the human brain. When we look at the brain itself and behavior, and I love your to behavior, there he is. When we look at behavior, just remember, all behavior starts with what you think. If you look at that triangle, that shows what you think leads to what you say and talk about. What you say impacts what you end up doing in terms of action and in terms of behavior. And what you do, you will be judged by your actions. That creates the perception around you, repeated behavioral patterns of how you are perceived. Does that make sense? Sometimes you desire a different behavioral outcome, and you need to adjust your first step, which is thinking. You've tried the same thoughts over and over, and it's not working, you're not getting it right. Like to start training, like to get fit in January, when all the active virgins are full at the start of the year. At the end of January, it's full. At the end of February, there's a 50% decline in people at the gym. The simple reason is, as I said, what you think becomes what you say, and you want immediate gratification because you can't see tangible results and experience the joy and the metric results you had in terms of speed, endurance, etc. Living in the past, you don't see the results immediately and you stop. That's what happens with habits, and that's what happens with success. All right, so moving on then quickly. Mental agility, what is it? The capacity to adapt one's thinking and behavior in response to a changing environment. Cognitive flexibility is another word used in the literature similar to mental agility, meaning obviously exactly the same thing, playing a pivotal role in facilitating goal-orientated behavior. In other words, I have the ultimate example of that, and that is coming here to you today. I flew from Cape Town this morning. I arrived at OR Tambo, and as I was trying to arrange my Uber pickup to meet at hole number 2E on the second floor, e-hailing, I arrive and see that they're 5 minutes away, And then I realized my bag's feeling a bit light. I opened my bag and realized my laptop is not in my bag. My laptop was left behind on the aeroplane. No jokes. At that moment, I can tell you, I wasn't calm. I was rather flustered because my entire talk was on that laptop. And I'd spent weeks preparing my talk, and I was so excited. And there I was. And I'm thinking, I've got to be at the venue in about an hour and a half's time. I'm going to now leave the Uber, run back into the building and ask the person at the ticket counter to please phone the aeroplane, find my laptop. Long and the short, I spent an hour and a half at the airport. They told me no one's handed it in, they couldn't find it, etc., etc. And in that process, how would you have felt? What would you have done if it was you sitting there right now? You can imagine. And in that process of an hour and a half, I remember calming myself down to have some breathing exercise moments, to try and visualize my loving wife and family at home, to try and ask myself, what would be the worst that could come of this question? What if that happens? What if, just to desensitize yourself to going into a state of true panic and worry. As I told them, I think I've got to hand it over now and release it after an hour and a half. I'm walking out of the gates, and there comes someone in an airport uniform with my laptop in their hand. After being told by everyone on the flight nothing was handed in, and phoning everyone, and there you go, down here. So mental agility was me having to calm myself down, think of what are the solutions, what are other options. I'd already arranged earlier versions of my talk that I'd stored on a cloud system to be emailed to me, on Teams or something, so I went into problem solving mode. And you are going to be in situations like this, and you're going to remember this story and what cognitive agility and flexibility is. But you can't get there unless you get your body and your mind into a relaxed physiological state. Then you can think of creative solutions and problem-solving ability. So I was tested a bit this morning, and very excited to be here. So, do you have mental agility? And you need to ask these questions for yourself. Can you switch between different tasks quickly or not? Or you are stuck. Think about home while you're cooking something and the phone rings and someone arrives unannounced at home. What happens to you? Does it irritate you? Are you really, really upset? Think about it at work. If you've got a certain target for the day and you want to do this and an email comes in and then it derails you. Are you very rules bound in terms of black and white thinking or not? There's only one way to do it. This is the way. This is my way. I want it done like that. There might be an easier way to do it, but I don't care. This one works for me. It's always worked for me, and I'm happy with that. And then the third one is perspectives and belief systems. So when it comes to mental agility, I think important from this study by Uden, that the things that help you obviously identify the key elements are things like the ability to shift your attention quickly, strategy updating. In other words, say that I had a plan to do this today. And another one was my son at school. My wife had dropped my son off at school at 3 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, he wanted to be done with jogging and running and athletics training. And as the afternoon had it, she let him know that she can't make it to be there exactly at 4, only at 20 past 4. And then he said, then I just don't want to train, then I'm not going to do it. You might as well just come and fetch me straight away at 3 o'clock. The bottom line of this long story is the fact that sometimes we choose the nothing instead of realizing I can train 40 minutes of the 60, for example. Even if I don't get the full 60 minutes, and mom wants to come earlier, the 40 minutes is better than nothing. But the cognitive reframing that needs to happen and adapting that needs to occur for you to actually take something beneficial from these challenges that are going to present to you is very, very important. Think about the Springbok kicker as he's kicking for goals in front of 60,000 people. What do you think the thought must be as he goes for the ball, kicks, and it's pulled to the left? He says to himself within the first five seconds, that's going to be my worst kick of the day. He carries on with it. You see the ability of cognitive reframing. Instead of harboring on it and trapping you in that trap. All right, so here we go. So I've spoken about cognitive flexibility, cognitive agility, and then when it comes to resilience, I think you mentioned early on, we spoke about the ability to bounce back. What's different about the human species is that we learn from previous experiences and have that memory in terms of our resilience battle. there's a wonderful tool called a change biography. We spoke about journalism, breakthrough diaries, etc. A change biography means you recording something in a situation where you felt totally overwhelmed, where you didn't see an successful outcome, and where you journal or write that down as a specific example, so that when you are in a similar situation again, you can go back to your change biography, and it reminds you and empowers you to realize, oh, this feeling is familiar, this emotion is familiar, the feeling of loss of hope, which we touched on earlier on as well, is lost here. But you've got evidence. It's not just a thought, it's proof that you actually pushed through. It's proof that you've been there and had what it takes to show grit and resilience to get through something. That's what a change biography is, and a useful tool nonetheless. So, here we go. I'm going to summarize these in the next few minutes as we finish off. We've heard from you now about the rhythms of importance of sleep. So I'm going to run through the 4 pillars to summarize quickly. And the first one is the rhythms in your life, and if you look at that, that's from Neurozone Global, a wonderful model of brain performance, which I particularly like. And when I look at this, for example, in green you've got all the basic drivers of brain performance: exercise, nutrition, sleep, and silencing your mind. When it comes to exercise, what do you need to know now? I've got 30 seconds with you per thing. So, high intensity interval training is the only type of exercise that has been proven to increase and to promote the growth of new brain cells because of a chemical that's released in the brain. High intensity means taking your heart rate up within a very short time to maximum heart rate within 30 seconds and keeping it there for a minute or two before bringing it down. Old people had a point when they said, sprint between the lampposts, sprint between this one and then walk and jog. And then sprint again. We used to call it Swedish fartlek in the day when we did athletics. So high intensity interval training. When it comes to nutrition, you've heard everything about nutrition, but what we do know now that we didn't know 20 years ago was that glucose is not the only fuel that fuels nerve cells in the brain, the neurons. Ketone bodies do just as well with less side effects to the rest of the body in terms of inflammation that glucose does. And that's why you'll see so many applications of ketogenic diets to epilepsy, for example, mood disorders. You also see the use of keto diets in people that struggle a lot with certain gut-related pathologies and inflammatory conditions in the medical world. And then sleep. What do I have for you for sleep? You need between 7 and 9 hours. Right, 7 hours, because your body needs 4 sleep cycles minimum a night to really flush the gutters. Your house has gutters on it with toxins, sand, and with weeds, and with all that. Your brain needs to do the same. If you don't get a certain quality of good deep sleep, for example, what happens is your brain can't flush those toxins if you aren't having enough sleep cycles. And that leads to other things that trigger the genetic predisposition to things like cancers and other medical autoimmune diseases. A lot of people didn't know about the gutter system of the brain, and that sleep helps that. So sleep also is there for body repair, it's there for memory, it's there for healing your immune system, and it's there to obviously promote concentration and so on. Silencing your mind, the other foundational driver is mindfulness. Selective focused attention. When you go to the toilet next time, I want you to sit on the toilet, look at the toilet roll holder, and remember that Dr. Green told you, right now, I'm not going to look at my phone, I'm going to look at the toilet roll holder, and I know while I'm looking at that, there are going to be other thoughts trying to capture my attention and steal my attention. But I'm not going to read. I'm not going to be distracted. Did I leave something in the microwave? Did I lock the car? Did I forget to pick the kids up, etc.? You choose to focus on that one thing, and it's a muscle that you train like you train any other muscle in the gym. You train the discipline in your mind in terms of your cognitive pathways, your neural wiring pathways, to in the middle of a crisis say, in this board meeting I can focus on problem solving and this current problem on the table. All the noise around me is now moved back. I'm here, I can focus. That is what mindfulness creates. It creates the ability for you to be present as well, and silencing your mind. Mindfulness isn't always a happy place and a happy, relaxing thought. My wife is an occupational therapist and psychiatrist. She always tells me, please remember, Darren, to tell people mindfulness means experiencing sometimes the good and the bad, but allowing and noticing that you are experiencing. So I hope that helps. All right, and then I just want to share that with you. I've mentioned all those. The other things terms of the brain cycle that you need to know, your take-home messages is the social brain. I'm going to finish off with the social brain because I think it's the most important one. The social brain is run by a structure in the human brain called the amygdala. Can you say the word with me? Amygdala. Now say it like you've watched 50 Shades of Grey. Amygdala. Amygdala. Oh, I'm enjoying your amygdala today. The amygdala is a Greek word for almond or nut. And what that specific nut does in your emotional system and in the brain, what it does is actually help you attach a value to any situation. A dinner party, a date. While you're here right now and meet people in the foyer, when they come closer, you get a feeling as to whether they mustn't talk to me or I wouldn't mind talking to that person right now. The amygdala is geared to prime you as to whether something in your environment threatens your survival or not. It tells you to move towards something or move away from something. And it's an incredible part of the human brain that helps you do that. And it asks 4 questions. And if there's one thing you take away from today, I want you to remember these 4 questions. The first question it asks is, am I safe physically and emotionally? With me? The next question it asks is this one. Do I belong? Do I belong? Do I feel a bit out and awkward? The third one, the bottom right. Am I made to feel that I can make a significant contribution or not? And then the last thing it asks is, do I align with my values and my sense of identity? And the amygdala is an incredibly powerful tool as part of that social brain. And I urge you to allow yourself to ask those 4 questions to decide whether and where you plant, in which relationships you plant, in which organizations you work or choose to work, and where you choose to live a life of significance. All right, and this I thought is a good thought to leave you with. How many of you, when it comes to emotional safety and security that I spoke about in the amygdala, the first question I asked, are aware of the fact when it comes to safety and their sense of belonging, 35% of South African kids grow up with both parents. A mother only, 40%, a father only, 3%, and neither of their parents, 21%. That's food for thought, when we look at the theme of nurturing and we look at the theme of emotional and psychological safety. So I hope that you take something back from that, and I think we've spoken a lot about some of these others. The last one that I mentioned is pillar 3, which is the higher order brain. And the finishing thought there is that if you don't look after the basics that I showed you in green, the sleep, the diet, the exercise, the nutrition, and you don't look after the social relationship, spending time with like-minded people, limiting the time with your mother-in-law on the weekend, now I'm joking, with family members, setting good boundaries, etc., what will happen is you will struggle to go to that big higher order executive drivers, which is the PIC that I've discussed at length with you today. Does that make sense? Right, and the last pillar, ladies and gentlemen, is one called sensory integration, and it's something I want to just direct you with on that last slide. That highlighted tip over there says sensoryintelligence.com. Do yourself a favor, and when you've got time, log on to that website and do a free assessment of your sensory profile, because your sensory profile actually helps you identify why you can't move into thriving and high performance in certain environments. Are you a sensory seeker or avoider? Does it turn you on to go into a mall and see for sale signs? And when you smell the restaurant's food, does it make you happy? Or do you feel tired and want to leave after spending time walking through the mall, for example? Sensory profile. You could be obviously auditory sensitive, light sensitive, because bright lights could irritate some of you as well. But some people love it. And there's a spectrum that we all are on. And it helps us to adjust our workplace and our homes, and also choose the best times to be the most meaningful and happy to the people around us. Thank you very much.